Before we get started here from the Hawkeye of the Storm Iowa postgame with Coach Gary Close, as always, want to take a special moment to thank a special group of people down at Brad Van Meter's office at State Farm in Des Moines, and give them a call for a free quote tomorrow morning on insurance, homeowners, auto, life, business, so much more. 515-256-6480, 515-256-6480, or you can visit Brad Van Meter online, his website, www.bradvanmeter.com. Again, his office is down on Fleur Drive in Des Moines. Brad Van Meter and his team down at State Farm in Des Moines. Also want to thank RTI Threads. They've been with us throughout Iowa men's basketball season. Our RTI Threads player of the game today is Drew Thelwell at 20 points, 8 of 10 from the field. And we'll get to kind of my takeaways from his performance and the consistency we've seen out of him. And I think to the surprise of many, and boy, where would this team be without his transfer contributions? Again, 20 points. He's our RTI Threads player of the game, an efficient 8 of 10 from the field. Of course, you can shop Owen Freeman's merchandise, also the NIL lines of Peyton Sanford and Josh Dix, a couple of guys that struggled tonight, but have been the face of this program the last couple of years. RTIthreads.com/NIL. Again, that's RTIthreads.com/NIL. Folks, if you're interested in joining the show with Coach and I this evening, there's a couple ways you can do that. You can join us in the live chat. Your comments, especially the super chats, will be prioritized. And if you'd like to call in and have a word with myself or Coach Gary Close this evening, you can call in via StreamYard. The link is in our description. Of course, we're recapping Ohio State's 82-65 win over the Ohio State Buckeyes. And to do that, I'm joined by none other than my good friend, Coach Gary Close. And Gary, good to see you. You're not as pale as typical Midwesterns are this time of year. Spending all your time down south in the sun, so good to see you.
A little bit, yep.
And are you on cloud nine? You on cloud nine today after that game yesterday for your Eagles?
It was an impressive performance by the Birds.
It's time to get. Would you agree? It's time to rid ourselves of the Chiefs. Like, it's time. I am a huge Eagles fan right now. It is totally time to dispatch that franchise of their dominance in this sport. And I'm relying on your Fly Eagles Fly group to get that job done in 2 weeks.
I thought Buffalo was maybe going to get him yesterday, but they're just snake bit when it comes to beating the Chiefs.
Some questionable officiating again, maybe.
A little bit, yeah, a little bit. In fact, I think the NFL officiating all year has been a little bit suspect.
Seems like we get that a lot, though, with Chief games. I know that's a common narrative right now out there, but the Eagles may have to just play that much better than the Chiefs in 2 weeks in order to get it done. Anyways, this is an Iowa basketball show, and Gary, it's been a little while since we've had you on. We've had a lot of interference with your schedule, and then, of course, there have been some really odd late tips, and you're going to get some of that with the West Coast games. So we appreciate you taking the time today. This was an opportunity to quad one win for Iowa that, of course, did not happen. Iowa stuck with the Buckeyes close in that first half, actually cut the lead down to 4 at halftime. And I have some takeaways from this, but fans have heard from me enough, Gary. How would you dissect this loss, yet another double-digit road loss?
Yeah. I agree with you. I thought they were in decent position at halftime, having I think only 3 guys had scored, and yet they were only down 4. And they were right there, but they got off to a not a very good start at the beginning of the half, and it just kind of snowballed from there. And when I was looking at the numbers, I think Sanford, Dixon, Harding shot a combined 5 for 26. And if you shoot like that, especially on the road, you don't have much of a chance. So not a good shooting night, and just wasn't enough around them to pick that up. So tough loss.
I know this is more of a general comment, or a question, I should say. Is it different depending on where you go when you don't shoot well, especially on the road? Because I understand it's harder to shoot well on the road. But when you don't shoot well, especially on the road, what do you fall back on? Are there multiple options, or is it just one thing?
Well, I think you take a look at some of the reasons why, and then try to improve on that. Shot selection, the type of shots you're getting. Are you getting any penetration and getting shots around the basket that are a higher percentage shot or can lead you to getting the free throw line. So that's sometimes it's just a bad shooting night. But I thought their shot selection at times was a little questionable. I didn't think they attacked Ohio State enough inside. Whether it's post-ups or off the dribble, and kind of settled a little bit too much from the perimeter. They've had nights from 3 that they look like they can beat anybody, but tonight was not one of them. And so they need to shoot well to win, and they didn't.
So I guess if you don't shoot well, you have to be able to fall back on defense, right? I mean, this is kind of like it. You can't expect to shoot well every night. So is it fair to say that fans can just expect if Iowa doesn't shoot well, and the proof is in the pudding, but if Iowa doesn't shoot well, there's a very little to no chance they're going to win on the road in this league. Is that fair?
I'd say I think, depending on how the other team plays, obviously, but yeah, if you're struggling at both ends of the court on the road, you have a hard time winning at home doing that. I think your chances definitely go down.
But it's just harder to shoot on the road. Is that fair? Like numbers wise, it's just typically you shoot worse on the road than you do at home.
I would say typically, probably, you're more comfortable at home than you are on the road. Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah, I'll be honest. And I tweeted this out during the game, and this is not reactionary because this is of course something that has been a trend here. But I tweeted this out at halftime. These types of disturbing first half stat lines have just come to be expected. And we all know who I'm talking about, but 2 points, 1 of 7 from the field, 0 for 4 from 3. That's a stat line for a guy who is, at least most people expected. He tested the NBA waters last year and was expected to be the go-to guy for Iowa. And Iowa's consistently getting first half outputs from Peyton Sandford that look like that. And at some point, isn't that just ridiculous? Like, I don't know how else to respond to those types of stat lines that they're getting now on a consistent game-to-game basis. Am I being too hard on him?
I don't know. I mean, it's he's their guy, and so when he's not when he's not playing well, it really hurts their chances. And I mean, he'd be the first to tell you that. I question his shot selection at times. I really think
I do too.
it's nice to have the green light, and I get that. Shooters want to, don't want to be hesitant. But some of his shots are, threes off the dribble, threes with hands in the face, threes coming off, tough screens. Those are hard shots. And when you're rolling, it's one thing. But especially early in the game, you want to see the ball go in. So, the reputation he's got as a shooter, I don't know why he doesn't put it on the floor off a shot fake and take it more to the rim, because people are going to close out on him hard. But I think he's got to take a look at that as where is he getting his shots? How contested are they? And how many free throws is he shooting? He's a good free throw shooter. He's got to get more easy baskets. He's taking a lot of tough shots.
How concerning is that we're talking about that during his senior year? This is his last go around. I mean, shouldn't that have been addressed 2 years ago?
Well, I think it's it's hurting him more now just because the makeup of their team and how important he is to it. Whereas in other years, other guys have been able to pick him up that aren't able to do it now. So I'm sure he's feeling the pressure. He's not getting a lot of help from a whole lot of other people. So it's almost like he's trying too hard.
As I mentioned at the outset, I thought Drew Thelwell was really good. I think he's their best player right now. I mean, it's between him and Josh Dix and Owen Freeman. I think I can't believe I'm saying that I don't think Peyton Sanford may not be in the top 3 right now. And maybe that's just the attention that he garnishes based on expectations heading into the year. But I kind of feel like, with the exception being maybe 1 or 2 games this year, you kind of know what you're going to get now that Drew Thelwell has settled in. And he's turned into maybe their best 3-point shooter. I mean, he's knocking him. I don't know what his conference percentage is. He was 3 of 4 tonight, 8 of 10 collectively. He's good at the defensive end. Seems like Seydou Traore is starting to kind of settle down a little bit. So I guess if there's any, positives that come out of the last couple of beatdowns on the road, it's that I think their transfer production is only going up. I wish that we'd be able to see what Cooper Koch could do as he matured throughout the year, but health has been a problem for that young man. It just seems to me, Gary, like this team is kind of stuck in first gear in a sense. They're just getting the same type of production from their older guys game after game. You're going to get, 14 to 18 out of Owen Freeman. He gives you like 8 rebounds every single conference game. But, man, Josh Dix was 0 for 7 from the field tonight, which is so unlike him. You're going to get a better second half than you do first half out of Peyton Sanford. But by that time, you're down, and a lot of those are garbage points. I think I try to echo what I hear from the Iowa fan base, Gary, and fans are just like, man, is there any hope here? We're halfway through the conference season. They're 4-6. I think we both agree they need to be over 500 to feel good about their NCAA tournament chances. And they can't win on the road. And not only can they not win on the road, they're getting thrashed. They're getting thrashed on the road. They are losing every single game. When you add in this game today, they're 0-5 on the road in the conference so far. They are losing road games by an average of 17 points. And that includes a game they almost stole in Ann Arbor, where they had a 3-pointer that would have won that game. So let's not, don't throw that game out because it's part of the schedule, but they're losing by an average of 17 points per game on the road. I would have to think that is a conference high. I can't imagine anybody's losing by that big of a margin through 5 road games in this conference. And they're not even they haven't even played the best teams in the conference on the road. They haven't played Purdue on the road. They haven't played Michigan State on the road, haven't played Purdue on the road. I mean, they played a lot of teams that when they faced them, they were below 500. Wisconsin is rolling now. They were reeling when they played them. USC and UCLA were both reeling when they played them, although USC had that game against Illinois where they won on the road, but they had been struggling. And this is an Ohio State team, Gary, hadn't won all month. In the month of January at home, they were 0-3 at home. And, I just don't understand it right now. And I'm not expecting you to, you're the diplomat here. I'm the guy that's going to come on here and just go on tangents. There are a couple of people who want to word with you because It's been a while since they've talked to you. Some of our loyal listeners and loyal Hawkeye fans. We'll start with Doug. Doug, welcome to the show. Good to see you.
It's good to see you guys.
What's up, Doug?
Just the Hawkeyes losing another road game, but my life's going pretty well other than that. So I'm blessed for the most part. I guess I have 2 questions and then a kind of a story question for Coach. My first question, because I asked Fran this on Hawk Talk. He gave me this answer of what he believes to do for a ball screen. And I watched him do that hard hedge. The Illinois guy, Bardo mentioned them doing that hard hedge off the ball screen. I've never seen any off that screen. I've never seen the guy roll off that screen and hit a 3 on us. Why are we playing so aggressive? Owen's 25 feet from the hoop and about 10 feet from the guy. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about. Why does Fran believe so hard on stopping doing that, hedging hard on that ball screen? It just seems I'm much worried about, because it's the rolling guy I'm worried about. I'm not worried about the ball handler. Maybe I'm not a coach.
Right. Yeah, that's, there's a number of ways to cover ball screens. Obviously you're talking about the hard hedge, and maybe that's something that they believe in. The risk you run with that is the roller getting open underneath, little pocket pass, things like that. So it's, I think there are a lot of teams struggling covering ball screens. Wisconsin just runs nothing but ball screens, and they're just chewing people up with it. It's not an easy thing to guard, and
they're looking at their chops for next Saturday, I bet.
Yeah, well, it's not an easy thing to cover, and everybody's got their own idea on how to do it. Some will hard edge, some will switch, some will do more of a drop coverage, where you take away the roller but give up a fairly easy pull-up shot. But it's it's not an easy thing to answer.
Well, I mean, this is a dumb comment, but I would much rather have a guy shooting a 22-foot jumper than a guy slam dunking it. That's just my opinion. So
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's probably where you should start. Now, people don't like giving up threes. I mean, you get beat giving up a lot of those too. So,
and the second question goes into that first question. I have 3 questions actually in the story. The second question is just that we've talked about guys helping too much, being out of position. How much, and I know you're not down at Fran's practice. I know you've seen some of Fran's practice. Like, do they work on that? Like not getting out of position? Do they talk about, I imagine during film, what can he do to help them at this point with 10 games left in the season and the tournament, hopefully, Big Ten tournament? I don't think he'll make the NCAA by any means, but what can he do to teach them, and what do you see that they need to know to play better defense? That's a broad question.
Yeah. I don't know what they do in terms of practicing and watching tape. I'm sure they do, do it in both cases. It first starts with your ability to contain the ball. I mean, if people are driving around you all the time, now you got to rotate. Now you got to help. Now you're scrambling, and that's where you can really get broken down with layups, with threes, with offensive rebounds. And I watched the Tennessee Auburn game the other day, and you talk about ball pressure. Oh my goodness, it was just unbelievable. Neither team could get around the other one. I mean, they were just moving their feet and getting angles and absorbing contact, and it was just unbelievable. So, it's something. It's probably the hardest thing to do. And then of course, when you're getting beat off the dribble all the time, it's hard to sustain your defense. So that's where it starts.
Are we overreacting?
But you got to have the confidence that if you do, whether it's a cut or whether it's a drive, that somebody's there to keep the basket protected, and the guys are rotating in behind them, and that takes a lot of work. So,
are we overreacting about our defense being? I mean, our defense is like not even just that they're giving up a lot of points, is just not good, right? Or maybe that's not what you see. Like, where would you where would you rate the defense? I don't know.
The defense needs work.
Let's just go with
question that. About, yeah. Now you've seen the percentages of teams have shot against them. And I look more, percentages are important, but I look more at the quality of the shots they're getting. Because sometimes we've mentioned it, you play great, you think you're playing great defense, but they're just missing wide open shots. It was one of those nights. And then, you play somebody else 3 nights later and the same shots are all dropping, going, well, we played the same way. They just, so
it's tough.
And when you're giving shots up around the basket, those are the highest percentage shots. They're going to kill you. And if you're giving them up wide open threes, those get you beat. That's how teams upset other teams when they knock down a bunch of threes. So your ability to be able to get teams to shoot somewhere in between that under some pressure without fouling, that's kind of the goal. Easier said than done. But Iowa gives up too many layups and gives up too many threes. And that's where that's
very
where
frustrating.
It breaks down.
Very frustrating as a fan, very frustrating as a person who used to play, and very frustrating. My comments kind of you both have, because people have been bringing up BJ's name, BJ Armstrong. I don't know what his future plans would ever be, but I absolutely love his podcast. I don't know if either of you've seen his podcast. To me, it's the second best podcast after From Hawkeye to the Storm. Have you either seen BJ's Hoop Genius podcast?
No, I'm going to have to check it out.
I looked it up after you said something about it one time, but I haven't listened to it.
Yeah. He's really, really, if he does want to come and coach collegiately, he's very smart. You probably know that more than I do.
We haven't brought that up on this show in front of Gary. That was brought up on a different show. So the idea has been tossed around out there, Gary. By the way, I'm not asking you to comment on the status of Fran McCaffrey, but might I remind you, Gary,
BJ wants to coach.
No, listen, one of the last times Gary was on here was in December, and we had Jess Settles on. And Jess kind of thought it was crazy for me to even bring up Fran maybe not returning next year. And now as this team slides, more and more people are like, yeah, let's get behind that. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but I'm just saying if somehow there was a coaching change, whether it be from the administration or it be on Fran's part, he decides, hey, I want to move on or go into retirement, watch my kids in Indy, whatever the case may be. What do you think, Gary, about BJ going straight into a job like Iowa? I don't know if he'd be interested.
And hiring you as assistant. No, I'm just a little bit joking there.
Hey, let's do it. But Gary, I think about Fred Hoiberg. I know it's not all even, but he jumps right to Iowa State, has a lot of success. Different era to some extent.
I think of Clyde Drexler and Chris Mullen.
But Gary, what do you think BJ would be like coming into Iowa? He'd be able to get recruits, I think.
Smart.
Yeah, no, he's terrific. He was a phenomenal player. He loves the game. He's been in the game his whole life. The question is whether he'd want to do it or not. He's got a pretty good situation where he is right now. No, I think he'd do real well. He's a very smart, knowledgeable, hardworking, quality person that then I think could be an effective coach if that's something he wanted to do. I have no idea.
So, I know you're not an AD, but from an administrative standpoint, would someone like that even be on the table for an Iowa program if they were looking for a coach? Would they even look at somebody who doesn't have?
Possibly. They might want to look at someone that's got more experience. If that's it's up to the AD what route they want to follow. You've seen Mike, the guy at Indiana struggled.
Yep.
And he was a terrific player there. Fred has struggled at times at Nebraska. It hasn't been a clean slate. That's a tough job. But Iowa's a tough job. So I think it's more what the AD is, what she wants. And like any AD, they've got their list of potential coaches that they might at least inquire about. That could be possibilities. Maybe BJ's on that list.
That slides me into my story and question for you. And I was curious because I listened to Tom Davis on a podcast for Where Are They Now thing. And I didn't realize, and I want you to clarify this story, but I did hear it from Tom Davis's mouth on the interview, that he basically had the Houston job in 1986 and one of you guys told Lute Olson that, and Lute Olson told you guys to call him before signing anything, or else you guys could have been at Houston and not at Iowa. Is there any merit to that story?
Well, I know that Houston went after him really hard, and I know that Lute Olson had a lot of impact on him taking a look at Iowa. And the other person was Bump Elliott. He just really, really felt very comfortable with Bump Elliott, and that was a big reason why he switched gears and came to Iowa.
Last question off of that, I said I want to ask one more, but because Franz obviously went through an AD change, and did you feel any pressure, any different when Bump left and Bowlesby took the job? Was there any, because now Fran's dealing with that, was there anything? I mean, we know how it turned out in 99, but did you guys feel any different as a basketball team or direction after Bump left and retired?
I don't know if we felt anything, but you know, anytime there's a change like that, you gotta be ready to roll. So it's not, it's not surprising when you see new ADs. You also see new coaches. That just kind of goes with the territory. So in this profession, you better keep winning, because if you do get a new AD, then that's all the more reason why you might not be coaching a lot longer.
Max Lewis says, play Drew Thelwell, Dix, Peyton, Seydoux, and Owen. Riley over Lodgy. He should never see the floor again. Brock and Price off the bench. A lot of heat on Lodgy, Dembele. I know you're not there at practice every day, Gary. What do you do with him right now?
Yeah, it's a good question. Just I don't know how many other options they've got. And like you said, I'm not at practice. That's where you make a lot of your decisions as how people are practicing, and are they improving? Are they still working hard? Are they doing the right things? And do you think they can give you a better chance? And then you got to make a decision going from there.
Gary, I don't know if you saw, was it last Friday? That I think it was a win against Penn State. I've never seen a crowd like that. I mean, it was like, I don't know if you saw photos of it, and I don't remember what the final count was, but there's like nobody there. I've never seen anything like that for a conference game. The students are here. That's not an excuse. It was cold, but it was a Friday night. I personally feel like Fran has completely lost the fan base at this point in general. Like, there's always going to be super fans that stick with him and stick with the team no matter what. Doug is one of those guys. Tony's one of those guys. But even those guys, they're like, hey, if I would have make the tourney, they're ready to move on. I'm not going to ask you about your thoughts on a potential coaching change, but if you're an administrator, besides getting rid of your coach, what else can you do in this situation? What else do you think can be done as an administrator in order to try to ignite some sort of a flame with what appears to be a dying fan base right now?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, it's all related to winning. If you're not winning, it's gonna hurt getting people in the stands. I mean, and I don't know what they're doing from a marketing standpoint to get people in there, but I think as an administrator, you got to be supportive, and we always felt that we had to work at selling tickets. That was part of our job. Some coaches, they don't feel that way. That's somebody else's job. But now part of that was we were at Stanford, and when we first got there was literally nobody watching games. Yeah. I mean, it was unbelievable how few people were there, and it was either we do it or it doesn't get done. I mean, we were doing all kinds of things on our own to try to attract people to come watch games. And if you win, and then that starts to take care of itself. And I think as an administrator, you got to support as much as you can, and then, hope things, there are 10 games left. Hope things turn around.
Here's my opinion on that, because I absolutely love what you just said. I've never been a coach, but when you said sometimes coaches have to go basically recruit fans and go advocate for fans to be in the arena, I love that. And I'm sure there are coaches still doing that today. Fran is not one of those guys that I'm aware of. I don't see any, I don't see any initiative from Fran, any efforts he personally makes to get fans there. I don't. And so it is apparent to me, what I observe is that he believes that's someone else's job. And here's one of the things to the people watching that I question with Fran McCaffrey. And this is not really a personal thing, but I do think it's a personality thing. I wonder if he has the humility to do that, because I think pride can easily get in the way of lowering yourself to having to advocate for fans. A lot of the fans have left this program and moved on to the women's team, which is also struggling. And so that's, you want to say it's an excuse or a reason why they've lost part of the fan base, but they've also had an issue with the student population for a long time. Television does not help the cause. Tip times don't help the cause. All of that is a factor. People bring up parking. That's a factor. Not winning. That's a factor. But as a fan, I can tell you from my perspective as a non-student at the University of Iowa, it would be refreshing for me, Gary, speaking for myself, if I saw Fran front and center advocating, putting down his pride and advocating for fans to be there. I don't want to say begging, but pleading with fans to be there. And I don't see that. And I don't think we'll see that. I don't think we will see that. So but I love what you just said. And I wasn't around back when you were doing that. But I would guess
this was more at Stanford than it was at Iowa. I mean, we did a few things at Iowa because Iowa it was sold out. I mean, there wasn't a whole lot of selling to be done.
Right.
And times have changed. I mean, there's attendance problems all through this league,
right,
with a few exceptions. I mean, Wisconsin doesn't sell out anymore. Yeah. We had a 250 game streak where we sold out every single game, and they're still winning, fairly regularly. And it's, I see empty seats tonight. There were empty seats at Ohio State. Obviously, we've seen him at Penn State. Rutgers is not drawing what they used to draw. I mean, it's all over. It's a problem. And not just in basketball. It's people are home watching on their big screen TV and not going out as much. And I think with a few exceptions, students are the same way. There's other things to do, I guess, on campus than doing that. It just doesn't seem to be as big a deal as it was, maybe 10, 15 years ago.
How hard is it, though, to plead with the fans to come? To tell the fans verbally when you get in front of a microphone and you're speaking with the media or whatever, fans, we need you. Please come out, support our team. How hard is it to do that? And is that just worthless? Is that just a waste of time or breath?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I guess you got to do it and see what happens to see. Obviously, it can't hurt, I guess. But there's the biggest change is win some games. Win some games, and people will come out. And if you don't win, then it's a struggle to get people to come.
And it doesn't help when you go on the road and get absolutely spanked the way they've been getting spanked, and then you come back home and want the fans to be there.
Right.
And they've won most of their home games, right? That's the reason they're 4-6. They're not out of the race per se, but it's just not inspiring what they've done away from home. And fans, I think Iowa fans, as you know, Gary, you know this better than anybody, that Iowa basketball fans are very intelligent. They know what the situation is here moving forward. They've got to figure out a way to win probably at least 3 road games these last 10. And that's 3 of their last 5 road games. Because if they don't do that, unless they go on a big run in the conference tournament, which you never say never on that, because they got Purdue coming up at home. We're going to talk about their schedule in a second. They got Wisconsin coming back, who's been playing good basketball, and of course thrashed Iowa up in Madison here a few weeks ago. Ask a Bum with a super chat. Drew is the best all-around player on the team, so appreciate that. And I agree with you, Ask a Bum. Right now, I would never have expected to hear that. I think personally, as much of it is a compliment to Drew Thelwell, I think it's a problem that he is the best player on the team right now. That should have never been the case. He was not brought in here to be the best player on the team, certainly not the best offensive player on the team. He wasn't even starting at the beginning of the year, and he's earned that role. And, anybody that thinks he shouldn't be starting now, I don't know what they're watching, but I think that's a problem. And the fact that Josh Dix is arguably the best player on the team is also a problem. I don't think either one of those guys should be the best player on a Big Ten program right now. I think that's part of the problem, Gary, is Iowa, as well as they shoot, and they've got guys who can make shots. We talk about the defense and rebounding. They don't have a star player right now. I really believe that. I don't believe they have a star player. They don't have a Matt Gatens, a Devin Marble, an Aaron White, a Luka Garza, a Chris Murray, a Keegan Murray. They don't have one. A Peter Jock. I mean, and I don't remember Jared Utoff. I don't remember the last time we've said that as Iowa people. And it's not even an individual rip on Peyton Sanford. I just don't think he should. I don't think he should ever have been relied upon as being that type of a guy with how he plays. Mm-hmm. Am I wrong on that estimation? I mean, do they?
No, you might be right, but you can win games without star players. It's certainly easier, especially going on the road, to have somebody like that. But I mean, who's the star player for Michigan State that stands out above everybody else?
Well, the difference is they got athletes everywhere.
They're undefeated. Who's the star player of Wisconsin?
They got athletes everywhere. They got athletes everywhere. Michigan State's got athletes everywhere.
Michigan State might. Wisconsin doesn't.
Well, Wisconsin, they got more athletes.
They got some. But what they do is they shoot the heck out of it.
Yeah.
And I mean, literally at every position. And so you can't play off of anybody. You talk about Purdue, is the guard a star? Yeah, maybe he is. I think he's a little overrated. I mean, he's a good player, but I mean, you can still win without it. I don't know if that's the reason why they're not. I think there's other reasons that are more prevalent that are causing them not to win than not having a star player.
But two of their best players, Tonje and Blackwell, are phenomenal athletes. Is that fair to say? Like, those guys are built to be star Big Ten players.
I don't know if I'd call them phenomenal athletes. They're very good athletes. Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Let's first of all, a couple things in the chat. Ryan says, "Is Mulvey the next Les Jepsen?" This has got to be tongue in cheek. Gary, don't break out laughing to that. No, Ryan, I'll answer your question. No, I'm not even going to give Gary the opportunity to answer it. Jerry says only 15 teams in the Big Ten tournament. Yes, that is correct. So in answer to Aaron's question earlier, it is possible to miss out on the Big Ten tournament now with the expanded field. Only 15 teams make it. Jeff says, what are we going to do with a bunch of 6'7", 6'8" guys next year? Need two more guards just as good or better than Thelwell. So if they retain Fran McCaffrey, and I do think that's still – if they retain Fran McCaffrey, Gary, they've done a nice job on the recruiting trail. That's the one thing you got to admit the last 2 weeks. I know you don't follow recruiting maybe as much as you have in the past, but they've got guys. They get the transfer kid from Miami who was a 4-star out of high school. Jim Larinaga walks away. He's a midseason transfer. He's not eligible until next year. They get a 4-star kid in Joshua Lewis that was wanted by a bunch of high major schools, including some blue bloods out there. He just committed a few days ago. And everybody else they have committed over these next two classes to this point are, I would say, at least good to very good athletes. And you've downplayed that in the past. It appears to me like you downplay when I bring up lack of athleticism. You say that's not as big of a problem as you make it out to be. But I've always said, it appears to me, Gary, that you are what you are under Fran McCaffrey. So in order to make up for the lack of fundamentals taught and the lack of time taught defensively, you better have really good athletes. And I think there's some glimmer of hope that maybe if Fran's retained, they have much better athletes. Am I wrong on assessing how you feel about my stance?
No, I mean, everybody would love to have a boatload of great athletes. I mean, it may not be realistic. And so you got to find ways to win when you don't. And it's been done before.
Mark is calling you out. He says, Gary, Michigan State star player is Jaden Akins, and yes, Wisconsin, Tonje, Blackwell, Stephen Crowell. Now, Crowell's not a great athlete. He's a very skilled big.
Yeah, a month ago, they wanted Crowell shipped out. That's how bad he was playing. They wanted him out of here. Now, Blackwell has come on. He is legit. He is a really good, maybe better than that guard. I agree with that. And Tonje the other day didn't score. I mean, that's one of their strengths is they've got a lot of guys that can score. So they have a night when somebody's Tanji, you know how many points Tanjay averaged last year for Missouri?
A lot.
2.
Oh, he only averaged 2 last year. Tanjay only averaged 2 points.
Yeah. And it wasn't exactly a household name, leaving Missouri and going to Wisconsin. But
isn't that
something in him, to their credit?
Isn't that basically what has happened with AJ Storr? I mean, here's a guy who leaves Wisconsin, ends up at Kansas, and is doing nothing.
Struggling big time. And you talk about a phenomenal athlete. There's nobody more athletic than AJ Storr. But this is a game of skill. You know, you can be athletic, but if you can't put it in the basket, I don't care how athletic you are, it's still not going in.
Doug 15 says 515, I should say. Brock Harding needs to stop dribbling so much and get into the offense quicker. He struggled tonight. 2 starters with goose eggs. Josh Dix, Brock Harding finish a combined 0 for 10 from the field. As I mentioned earlier, Peyton Sanford was 1 of 7 from the field in the first half. It was the Owen Freeman, Drew Thelwell show, and then Seydou Traore ended up in double figures with a lot of points late. Like I said earlier, I think he is starting to come into his own, Gary. Where are you with Seydou? Because I know he spent time struggling, but he seems to have settled down a bit here as we've continued through Big Ten play, and they need him.
They need somebody. I mean, they got to have somebody they can, give them a spark, whether it's a great offensive player, a rebound, or a block shot or something. They, it looks like they're kind of waiting around for somebody to do something, and it's not happening.
Let's go to our next caller. We've got Cody on the line. Cody, welcome.
Hello, how are you guys?
Good. How are you?
Good. I do agree with the statement about Thelwell being the best player because, as we've seen, he can D up guys and he can get around guys and get to the cup. And as we know, jump shots can be a fickle mistress. And when you have guys like Sanford and even Dix with that mid-range, all of a sudden that's not quite as automatic as it was before. That's why I like Thelwell so much. But what I was thinking, one of the reasons I feel like Fran has lost some of the fans is because when you think about what gets people excited, of course, I mean, deep threes, going on crazy runs on offense, but it's effort things. And effort a lot of times comes through in the way of rebounding and defense. And you think about the things that we are really, really bad at is rebounding and defense. And I find it amazing that our defense is so poor, and yet somehow we still get rebounds. Like, that's incredible. Like, if you play poor defense, it's like, okay, at least get the board. But we can't get rebounds, and we're not even D'ing up people either. So I think that's what's lost people a little bit, because you look at it, and it looks like when Ohio State's getting multiple multiple rebounds and getting extra shots on every possession, and they finally cash one in, it's so defeating as obviously a player and a fan. And I'm not questioning the effort of people. I know it's, people are putting in effort out there, but it appears to be a lack of effort sometimes when you're not getting rebounds. You're consistently being out rebounded every game, and it's not close. And then the defense is suspect too. And so I think that's why, Fran could ask people to come to the games, but until you see that ratcheted up a little bit, I think it's perceived as a lack of effort.
But Cody, he doesn't ask people to come to the games. I don't hear him asking for fans to come to the games at all. It's one thing if one was missing, like, oh, I'm advocating, but we don't see effort, so we're not going to come. Or his teams are performing well on the defensive end. They're rebounding, they're putting in the effort, but he just doesn't advocate. Like, you can live with either or. He doesn't do either. That's what's so frustrating to me. Like, that's why, and I hear a lot of people, you hear him too, they're complaining because he doesn't get fired up on the sidelines anymore. And yes, it used to be fans complained because he had a temper that was not under control. Now he never gets fired up and people are complaining because they're looking for some sign of life. They feel like there's no life right now to some extent with this program. And I'll say this right now, I have not seen a glimmer of this team looking like an NCAA tournament team this year. And I mean that seriously. I went back and thought during this game, I'm like, let me go back and remember what games they've played that have impressed me. They beat an average at best Utah team on a neutral court up in Sioux Falls. Cody, you were there. That was a decent win, not a great win, right? They competed with Iowa State for a while. That's got to be the most impressive performance of the season, but they lost at home. I don't know how we're going to really count that in their favor. They beat Nebraska coming back from a double-digit lead late at home. They beat Indiana. They beat down on an Indiana team that has been horrible this year under Mark Woodson for much of the season. They've found another way to lose yesterday against Maryland at home, mind you. I'm trying to think of a game where you look Penn State at home.
The Northwestern last-second chuck to win.
They beat a decent Northwestern team again at home. They get absolutely ripped at Utah State. I'm just like, I don't even know what the committee would look. There's no way on paper they would even be on the bubble if we were here right now. They've got to rattle off like at least, I think, 3 quad 1 wins to even be in a remote conversation without serious work in the Big Ten tournament. To me, I have not seen anything during a game, or I should say as a result in a game, that tells me that this is an NCAA tournament team.
I agree.
They're not. They're not now. There's no question. The one benefit they got, they're playing in a league that's going to get a lot of invites. I looked around the league. It's crazy. You look at the ACC. They got like 2 teams that are any good, and they got like 20 teams in the league. There's 2 teams that are good. The rest of them stink.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. Now that the SEC is different. They're loaded, and the Big 12's okay. But the Big 10's probably the second best league in the country, and I think it's down. And so that's going to be an advantage. But no, you're right. They gotta win some games, or they got no shot.
I agree, and I agree with what you said about Fran. I mean, be who you are. If you're a coach that wants to yell, that's fine. If you're a coach that's not going to get involved, that's fine. But to me, I look at him on the bench, and it looks like he's just resigned to his fate. I don't know. Like, I saw a couple shots of him, and Sherm's just sitting there with his legs crossed, and Fran's just kind of doing one of these to the assistants, and I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah, it's something.
It's weird.
And I don't know what it is. I've said this before on the show this year, Gary. I know you watched Iowa basketball for a long time, but during a lot of Fran's tenure, you were on the sidelines coaching yourself. He's different than he was a couple of years ago. He is. I mean, he is noticeably different. There's no denying that. Whether it is a medical issue, whether it's he's been counseled by the administration not to get upset. There's something different. He does not have the visible fire that he used to on the sidelines. And I'm not saying he's checked out. Some fans are saying that, but there's something. Gary, you've noticed this, haven't you?
Maybe a little bit. Yeah, maybe
a little bit. Gary's being kind a little bit. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm saying it is what it is. I'm just saying it's there.
Do you think the only thing I can think of that's different is he doesn't have a child playing on the team? Could that factor into it at all?
Maybe.
Yeah. That's it. I've heard that tossed around out there. I don't know how.
You tend to defend your kids a little more than anybody else, yeah.
But he was very fiery before his kids ever got there. Let's just be honest. Think about when he got tossed and you were on the sidelines probably chuckling to death, Gary. Back on that old Shaney Woodbury team, and he made contact with the official and got tossed. You were on the sidelines. You were probably chuckling, and he got tossed, and there was no McCaffrey on that roster besides Fran. You remember that game, don't you, Gary?
I do.
That was one of the games that was one. Well, I won't go there. Go ahead, Cody. Anything else? Anything else?
No, I was just going to say I started watching Hawkeyes in 1985 at 7 years old, and I always enjoyed watching them. Always listened, watched everything. I actually turned off the UCLA game for the first time in 40 years of watching Iowa basketball. I turned it off. I couldn't take it. Like it broke me. But I mean, I'll still be here. But yeah. Anyway, thank you guys. Have a good night.
You watched the game today?
Oh yeah.
Oh, okay. So didn't you know what? In a sense, I know this sounds bad, but didn't you kind of know what was going to happen in the second half?
Oh yeah, 100%. I don't know why I stuck with that. I thought maybe we could string together a couple. They gave us a little life one time, but it's funny. My wife walked in. She was like, "What was the score on the UCLA game?" And she saw the TV was off, and she's like, "Uh-oh." And I'm like, "It's bad day."
This is my analysis of Iowa basketball on the road. To me, it's very simple. They have to shoot well to win on the road. That's not rocket science. They have to.
Yeah, shoot well everywhere.
Well, yeah, but sometimes you can get away at home because you can get away with it at least throughout the game because, Gary, the other team may not shoot very well away from home themselves. That's what I'm saying, right?
All right.
But when you're on the road, you can't expect the other team to just not shoot well all game, especially when you're known for not playing defense and giving them second and third opportunities. So you just know, Cody, you watch the first half, you're like, I was right there, but they can't make shots. You're like, well, Ohio State's eventually going to start making shots, and it's going to be over.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
And that's what happened. They eventually started making shots, and it was over.
That's right. Thank you, guys. Have a good night.
All right.
Thanks for the call, Cody.
And to kind of illustrate that further, Ohio State scored 30 in the first half, 52 in the second half. Iowa gave up 52 points to the Buckeyes in the second half. Traeger's 44. Iowa had 3 NBA players in the same team, Murray brothers and Garza, and they could not get past the first round. That is a coaching issue. Appreciate the super chat. Traeger's 44, and he adds with a different super chat. I disagree. There is a lack of effort and mental toughness, except for Thelwell, who plays his heart out. Lack of killer instinct, also a coaching issue. And I would disagree to some extent with that comment, only because I don't look across the board and say there's always an effort, a lack of effort. Gary, do you see a lack of effort from Iowa, or is it more so?
No, I don't see a lack of effort. I see a lack of execution. Sometimes that looks like it's a lack of effort, but no, I don't see that. But I like that one of the callers mentioned, when you're getting beat on the glass, it'll look like it's a lack of effort, and in most cases, it's a physical thing. They got to get corrected. I mean, I watched a couple times. I just ran it back, and they're not hitting anybody. They're just guys are going right around them.
There was one play tonight, though, that did upset me in the moment, where I believe it was a Peyton Sandfort turnover, and he didn't make any effort to get back and contest the layup. None. And that is where you're already working on thin ice with the fan base. And so when you see examples of a lack of effort, it's going to get under people's skin. And I noticed that second half today. But I agree with you. I don't think maybe lack of effort is where it's at, especially on the defensive end. It's execution. Tony says, whoa, is Corey on a spaceship? I don't know what he's am I echoing, Gary?
No, maybe it's the background. You kind of look like
I look like a spaceship. I got a window over here.
You got the dark sky, whatever that's back there. That's
that is. That's the dark sky.
I can see that.
All right. Let's see. Let's go to Kyle. We got Kyle here. Kyle, welcome. Kyle.
Hey, Kyle.
Good evening, gentlemen. How are we doing?
Good.
We're good. How are you?
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. That was a tough watch today. I was sitting there watching with my dad, and it's funny, like watching games with him, because he's somebody that enjoys basketball but didn't grow up around it. So a lot of the sort of basic observations in terms of coaching and all that stuff are not things that he's able to make. But he was all over them all night tonight, very vocally critical of them. And I was too. I was really frustrated with, really, and I'm hearing what you guys are saying about effort. I disagree to an extent, because I don't think relative to their competition, the effort that they put forth is equal to the effort of their competition most nights. But the best, most positive thing you can say about their effort is that it's an average effort. And I've said this before to Corey, but as somebody that played the low level of college sports that I did, I just don't understand where the pride is. I don't understand where the pride is, because to me, if you're playing game after game on the road and you're just getting waxed, your defense is non-existent. They gave up 11 offensive rebounds on 32 missed shots tonight. So a third of the shots that Ohio State missed, they were getting an offensive rebound. Where is the player besides Drew Thelwell? And I'm incredibly thankful for him. I'm so glad that he's here. I wish we would have gotten our hands on him 2 years ago, because he's the one that, with 5 minutes left in a blowout loss, that's still competing. And I'd love to see that. But where is the player in the first half when the game is slipping away, early second half when they went on that run, that just says, okay, we might get beat. It might happen. But I'm going to show that excessive over-the-top effort to show the people around me that I care. I don't see that person. That really bothers me watching these games. I don't see that person that looks at the guy to his left and the guy to his right and says, okay, nobody's doing anything right now. Nobody's getting up in anybody's chest defensively. Nobody's, fouling, trying to dive after a rebound. I'm going to be the person that stands up and puts forth a noticeable standout effort for these next 2 or 3 minutes. And honestly, it looked to me like Price Sanford and Carter Kingsbury put forth more effort defensively than Peyton Sanford. And to me, that is, for somebody that wants to play in the league, whether or not, we can argue all day and all night about whether or not he belongs in the league. But for somebody that wants to play in the league, his effort defensively is ridiculous. It's just horrible. And the shot selection is even worse. He is somebody that does have potential, and he's not a bad player. He should be their best player, frankly, but he just isn't. And a lot of it comes down to the mental shot selection, where he's just taking, they're going on a run, and then he gets a pass and he's half open and he misses the opportunity, takes a dribble, shoots a step back three or shoots a contested three with a hand in his face. And it's like any momentum's gone, because you watch him shoot that shot and you're just like, you can just feel the teammates exhale and just go, oh, like we had an opportunity. We're in semi-transition and he jacks up some 28-footer with a hand in his face and it hits side rim. And that's it. And for as much as he wants to say about, when he takes those shots that he's a good 3-point shooter, sure, if he took the shots that everyone else takes, he'd be a good 3-point shooter. He's shooting 34.5% right now from three. You know what that is? That is bang on NCAA average. He's not a good 3-point shooter, not because of his shot, but because of his shot selection. And 34.5% is 1.5% below average in the NBA. And that's his strength. That's supposed to be what he's good at. I'm rambling a little bit here, but it's just frustrating watching somebody that does have potential to be a really good player waste it on no defensive effort, or either that or he's just completely out of position all the time. He gets driven around like his feet are nailed to the floor. It's either that or effort. And mentally, he's taking horrible shots all the time. I don't know, between him and, some of the other guys that, again, maybe it's not lack of effort, but when these teams are going on these massive runs, again, I just struggle with, where is the guy besides Drew Thelwell that says, okay, we're struggling right now, we need a boost. I'm going to go and I'm going to dive on the floor for a loose ball to prove a point.
Kyle, I think it's a bad sign, and Gary may disagree with this. I think it's a bad sign that your best effort guy is a transfer.
Yes.
Is a fifth-year transfer. Because to me, and maybe this is anecdotal, Coach, but to me that tells you that's more what someone else has built and recruited, as opposed to what you've identified. Now, you've identified him out of the portal, which is great, but he's a fifth-year guy, and he's giving you the best level of consistency, effort, and certainly tenacity on the defensive end. I don't know about leadership off the court, but to me, that's an issue. That's not being bred.
It's hard for a transfer to be a leader, right? It's hard for me personally. We've had guys that came into our locker room or whatever, came into our team, and you don't come into a new place and start bossing people around, telling people what to do. You just don't. I guarantee you where he was before, he was a leader. But I don't know. I just don't. I don't see it with anybody that has been here for 4 years or 3 years that wants to be that guy.
Yeah. Good stuff, Kyle. Did you say you heard something on social media about Owen Freeman's family being upset after the game? Is that floating around out there somewhere on the web?
I had that up a second ago. It was just I think Zach Freeman. I don't know if is that Owen Freeman's dad?
Yes, that's his dad.
Yeah, he tweeted, "Wow, question mark. And I think somebody said it was around the time that Owen got pulled from the game in the second half. And then Christina Freeman retweeted it and said, I second that.
Ooh.
So
you don't want that. That's not good. Gary, I know that's, social media. You don't want that, right? That's not a good look when you have parents of one of your best players starting that kind of. I'm not saying the parents are wrong for doing it. They probably are, but that's not a good look.
No, I'd agree.
That doesn't help.
What time did he get pulled? Let
me defend Fran for a second, Kyle. That is not good from the Freeman camp. That is not good from the Freeman camp. That doesn't help anybody. All that does is create more drama. Anyways, go ahead, Gary.
No, I agree with you. I get it. He's a really good player. I don't think he's taken the step that I thought he was going to, and that's where you got to look. You got to look in the mirror, and how can I get better? What can I do to help the team? How can I improve? So on and so forth. I mean, they lack a guy that they can go to get a basket inside. He should be the guy. And at times he doesn't, but he doesn't do it on a consistent basis. He's a talented kid. I thought he had a chance to be really good, and he still does. But I don't think he's taken the leap that I thought he was going to take.
Well, you made this comment a couple of weeks ago, Gary, and I've watched it ever since then. You brought up how he never goes with his left hand, and I saw that tonight, and I'm like, correct me if I'm wrong, like that's a big issue for a guy who's supposed to be a dominant post player in college. If you're spinning left and trying to go right, and we saw him do that successfully a couple of times tonight, you're limited, right? And guys are going to start.
Unless you're 7'4". Yeah, exactly.
It's going to be on the scouting report, right? That's on every scouting report. He does not go with the left hand.
Right at the top.
And with him too, like he's one of the ones I won't accuse of lack of effort because I think he plays hard. I think he competes. To me, it almost looks like his body is just not Big Ten big level. Like to me, his body physically, he's soft inside at times. I mean, I just find that there's a lot of bigs in the league that push him around, push him off the block, push him away from the basket. I mean, when opposing teams focus on it, it is not hard to shove him out of the paint. I don't know.
Yeah. I've seen that for sure.
Kyle, appreciate you.
They're not a very physical team to begin with, right around the horn.
No, they're not.
That's what's hurting their rebound. They're just not very physical at all.
Yeah, Logi is extremely. He gives you very little. And you know what's so frustrating about that, Kyle, is he looks the part. He's a huge.
He does.
He's like 6'8", 260. He's massive. He could be playing tight end.
I think ESPN has him at like 258 or something. He's
ridiculous. He ought to be playing tight end or D end at Iowa. And he struggles to get any rebounds. Anyways, Kyle, thank you for calling in. Say hi to the wife, and we'll talk to you next time.
Speaking of Iowa football, I tell you what, Cooper DeJean in Philadelphia could run for mayor.
How about that?
He is a player.
Yeah.
Oh, man,
he's been incredible, hasn't he?
He is good. He is fun to watch.
Folks, speaking of that, we might as well use that as an opportunity, a nice little segue to give a plug to our friends over at RTI Threads because they've still got CD3 gear. Yes, you can still purchase authentic Iowa-themed gear from RTI Threads, and here is the NIL division. Of course, you can also shop the official apparel lines of Owen Freeman, Jacob Gill, Josh Dix, Aaron Graves, etc. But here's the CD3 Laces Up gear, and you can shop men's, women's, youth, and more. Again, cd3lacesup.com, but you can find that link through the RTI NIL store. Again, visit rtithreads.com, and once you click on the apparel line, you can find the CD3 symbol, or I should say logo, and even the "It Wasn't a Fair Catch" shirts. And how about the Coop? I know that's become a chant in Philly, hasn't it?
Oh yeah, every time he goes back for a punt return, they let him out. Everybody know.
And I don't know that he got credited for that forced fumble yesterday, but he should have at least gotten a half forced fumble.
He's a good player.
He sure is. Again, Cooper DeJean, check it all out at rtithreads.com/NIL, or just visit rtithreads.com and then click on NIL athletes. The link is in our description. of this video. Also, our RTI Threads player of the game, Drew Thelwell, 20 points, 8 of 10 from the field, made 3 of his 4 3-point attempts, also added 3 rebounds. Boy, it'd be great if they could get him back for another year. Unlikely, but he's been, again, I don't know where they'd be without him. I really have no idea where they would be without him. He has been so good, and, his leadership has been huge, especially in a couple of their tight wins. He's just a calming effect, especially at the point guard position. Let's go to what I believe to be our last caller of the day as we wrap our show up, Mr. Tony. And Tony, before we get your comments, I do need to give Doug a shout out because we didn't read his super chat. He wants me to ask Gary about what this team needs to do during the 8-day layoff. So, Tony, before we ask you what you got, Gary, how would you answer Doug? 8-day layoff. Give us some hope, he says.
They got 8 days off till their next game.
They do.
Wow, that's a lot.
Use it.
Yeah, hopefully they can improve in those 8 days. They got a lot of time to watch tape and break things down and do some soul searching.
The good news is they come back and they play at home, Gary. The bad news is they play 2 of the best teams in the league, Purdue and Wisconsin.
Well, that's how you turn your season around. Knock a couple of those guys off, and all of a sudden,
yeah,
you can beat anybody. Hey, there's nobody in this league that you can't beat. Purdue's lost some games. You just shake your head. They lost at home to Ohio State or somebody. They lost at home. It was a bad loss. Wisconsin's got a nice record, but they have not played any of the good teams they've played in the league. They've lost to. So it's a lot of it's your schedule. So, take this time off, get better, and a win over a team like that could light everybody on fire.
Wouldn't you rather at this point in the year, given what Iowa has, or I should say doesn't have on the resume, wouldn't you rather even difficult home games? You don't need wins over Penn State and Maryland at home right now. It's not helping you. They got to get quad 1 wins. They got to pile up quad 1 wins in a hurry. You might as well play home games against the best teams in the league. Is that fair?
Why not?
Let her rip.
Why not?
All right, Tony, what you got for
him? Sorry. I do have my, oh my gosh. That's my update of my North Sioux City RTI threads. It is on the way.
All right. Well, by the next time we have this show in about 8 days, you should have your RTI threads gear here. So that's great.
Yep. All important question. Gary, how's the golf game?
Not bad. Not bad. It can always get better. I'm a very average golfer, but I like playing.
And do you have a favorite course down there?
Well, the place that we have our place at has got a couple of courses, and those are the ones we played. I really haven't gone out beyond that. I haven't been down there enough to do that. So, but I'd like to.
So I'm just going to add on. I mean, most of the stuff I wanted to ask has kind of already been asked in a different form, but I'll kind of reword it maybe a little. Like, I wanted to say, like, I thought Connor McCaffrey was a glue guy and someone that would get after people. Like, who did you guys have? To me, it seems like they let one little thing turn it from okay, we gave up 2 points to now it's 8 points. Where early in the second half, Peyton drove to the basket, hit a little floater right away in the beginning of the second half. Then he hit a 3 from the corner right in front of the bench. And then a whistle happened, and then he hit another 3 after, which it's not, it doesn't count. But he had a 3 that went in, and he saw it go in. And then it just seems like some little thing that goes sideways, no one grabs these guys I'm not saying they're grabbing them by the shirt, but you know what I mean, like metaphorically. Like, there's no one that says, hey, look, let's lock in and let's not let this little thing turn into 4, 8, 12, and then, okay, now we're out of the gym. Like, they don't have anybody who wants to steady the ship. I guess that's a better English term for it. I mean, any thoughts on something like that? Like, who did you guys have during your tenure? And how do you can't coach that? It was mentioned by someone like, well, that's on coaching. Well, you can't coach like someone to have that in them. They either have it or they don't. And who were some of the guys you had that you remember that just steadied the ship and righted it when stuff like that would go sideways?
Oh, we had a bunch of them. from the early years with we mentioned BJ. Eddie Horton was a real enforcer. Chris Street was a tough, competitive kid that didn't like to lose. Jess, we mentioned. So we had a bunch of them. So it certainly makes it a little bit easier, but it's it's hard to get runs when you can't get consecutive stops. I mean, you can't get anything going. And I think that's their biggest problem now is they just defensively, they can't, they can't get any kind of consecutive stops for the most part. And it's something they got to get better at. And I'm sure they know that, but hopefully these 8 days they can improve on that, because that's a real problem right now.
But what do you do as a? Oh, go ahead.
Can I just say something real quick?
Yeah, no, go ahead. Yeah.
The next two home games are against ranked teams. This is a wild stat, Gary. 4 of their final 5 games are against ranked opponents. They play basically the best teams in this league at home during the final stretch, and they also play at Illinois. But they get Michigan State at home, they get Wisconsin at home, they get Purdue at home, and they get Oregon at home. So they got quad 1 opportunities everywhere, even at home.
They only have 1 non-quad 1 game left. Or no, sorry, 2. At Rutgers is not quad 1, and Washington at home. But all the other games, like you have it, like it's in front of you there if you want to.
I still think they got to. Here's the deal, though. First of all, we haven't seen any glimmer that they're going to win road games, Tony. No. Second of all, we haven't really seen much of a glimmer that they're going to beat these good teams at home. Who have they beaten that's good at home? They got that last second win over Northwestern. They're decent. Penn State's not really any good.
Penn State, I mean, it was without Vlad. It was without Vlad Golden tonight, but Penn State gave Michigan a run for their money at Michigan. I don't know if you noticed that.
Michigan's been kind of.
They've been up and down, but I mean, they've had some.
It's a long year. You're going to have moments.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to have those types of games.
Yeah.
I mean, that just happens. It's just. Go ahead. It's so frustrating because the schedule is there. This almost reminds you of, and I'm not trying to get into this because it happens all the time. Iowa football versus Iowa basketball. Like, this almost reminds you like the schedule was set up for success this year for both the football program and the men's hoops. Like, they got all the tough teams at home.
We have,
but neither of them performed. Now there's more expectations. We could go on that diatribe forever, but you see what I'm saying? Like, it's just frustrating as a fan. Like, now to add on to that, like, you've got to be frustrated as a coaching staff too, Coach Close. Like, when you're on this coaching staff and you feel like you have an opportunity there, like, how do you keep the course? Because you guys have to be the model of that consistency, and we're staying the course in what we do. Like, how do you do that to try to right the ship as a coach? Because you've got to be frustrated. I mean, it's just human nature. What do you do?
Stay consistent. You gotta, you can't get too high when you win or too low when you lose, and just keep persevering and working hard and finding ways to improve. And it's all about getting better. The teams that get better are the ones that are going to be, lasting at the end. And sometimes you get better and it doesn't result in wins, but you just got to keep doing in hopes that it will eventually. There's a lot of room for improvement on this team. The question is whether they'll get there or not. And that's, it's going to be interesting to see.
Hey, we're gonna wrap up the show here in a minute, but
I just had one last one for him.
Yeah. I was just saying, everybody curious. Iowa State in a battle at Arizona. The Wildcats leading the Cyclones 34-30. Those late games out west, Pacific time, gotta love them. And the Wildcats.
And this is their second one because they played at Arizona State 2 or 3 days ago.
Yeah, they
did
Arizona.
They did Arizona State.
They stayed.
This is their West Coast trip, and that's short rest. I mean, what are we talking about? Saturday to Monday? I mean, Arizona to Arizona State's not that. It's like a
they're right. They're right there. What do you want to do?
But I mean, I'm just saying, like, it's their second game out there on the West Coast trip. Like, it can wear on you.
It's not really West Coast, but anyways.
Well, I mean, Arizona's got that weird thing where they don't do daylight savings times, right?
They're Pacific time, aren't they, right now, Gary?
Well, I forgot what they are.
They don't change, yeah. So they might be Pacific now, yeah.
Okay. They want to keep it difficult for us to keep track of.
Yeah. Tony, what's on the beer docket for this evening?
I had Blue Moon Light.
And do you change your beer mid-game when Iowa starts squandering? You change what you're drinking?
I actually change like shirts sometimes. Shirts.
You change shirts?
Oh yeah, I'm dumb. I'm so dumb. Like,
hey,
you've changed a lot of shirts lately.
I have way too. Like, if you saw my wardrobe, it's absolutely dumb.
You better, you know what? You better buy more from RTI, and you better buy more from the Hawkeye of the Storm line. If you're, maybe that'll fix this team.
Hey, you need to get. I told you need to get RTI on your Hawkeye of the Storm line so you can get a few more basketball stuff. I mean, I know basketball is not the moneymaker now, but get something with cash.
I'm telling you, there are things in motion, Tony.
I trust the process.
Let me say something else. Big things. And let me say something real quick, Gary. We got to get BJ on this show. You've been promising me BJ Armstrong for 3.5 seasons.
Dude, you know how many I fill up 4 hours of questions just for BJ by myself alone. I'm sure Doug could too. Don't go ahead. I won't.
He's fighting fires out there right now. But
he is, yeah. That actually is perfect. Like, you always do this stuff. I'm not going to go adult rated here. With me, like, you're segueing. My last question was literally about BJ. And it was to say, Coach, you know BJ. You have a good relationship with him. Juwan Howard, he had that interim tag or whatever, and he hired, was it Beeline who helped him? And Beeline was kind of his, like, quote unquote second coach or whatever, because he had no experience and he needed someone on the bench with him.
Martelli.
Martelli, that's who it was. I'm sorry. They look kind of similar. I'm sorry about that. But you know who I meant. Like, he had someone there.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think you'd still have it in you to give 2 or 3 years to give BJ? I mean, because I think
it's time to wrap it up.
Hey, real quick, just for the record, Gary would absolutely come back to coach for BJ Armstrong. That's my belief.
But I just think, like, we mentioned that earlier.
So much money with this podcast.
Oh yeah, all this. I mean, look, Corey's on a spaceship. Look at that spaceship in his background. He's launching into space here, and that's how much money he has. But I mean, that's just, I think, something that if we did consider BJ, he would probably want someone as an experienced coach. Like, if you built the correct staff around him,
I think it's a phenomenal.
I agree. It would bring back the glory days of Iowa basketball.
How about this, real quick, Tony? If Iowa believes in Matt Gatens, actually believes in him, this isn't just a Fran thing. You hire BJ. If Fran leaves, you hire BJ Armstrong. You hire the man of the century, Gary Close. You retain Matt Gatens. Okay, you retain Matt Gatens, and then you say to BJ, "You go find one more." Now I know it's BJ's staff, right? So he's going to find whoever he wants to find anyway. But how about that for a start? Gary Close, Matt Gatens, and then you hire one more guy.
Can I say Gatens wouldn't even?
Now this day and age, you can hire about 3 or 4 more guys.
Gatens wouldn't even be my first choice off the staff.
No, okay.
Off this current staff,
you'd like Courtney. You want Courtney?
No.
You want Spurlock because of his recruiting. You just think his recruiting's all flashy.
Well, no, it's not even that. It's like, if you listen to the story of how that guy came onto the staff and how hard of a worker he is and everything, I want that young, hungry guy. Like, we already have the Iowa. Nothing against Gatens. I love Gatens. Love him as a former Hawk. We already have the former Hawkeye connection with Coach Close #1 and BJ #2, obviously, even with BJ being
but let's cross generations, Tony. Let's cross generations. You need somebody representing from this generation as well.
Fair enough. But I mean, I'm telling you my personal opinion. I'd rather have a Spurlock than Gatens right now.
All right.
Honestly, that's just my opinion. I think he's going to reach a broader base. Like,
now, seriously, now Gary's not going to get BJ on because he's afraid I'm gonna ask him about the job. I wouldn't do that, Gary. I wouldn't ask him about the job. I might throw it out there. I might throw it out.
No, they asked him on the radio show. You can just say, "Hey, look, BJ, I listened to the pregame show against USC, and Dolph and Bobby throw this out there," because Dolph and Bobby did, and they said, "Hey, what's your next step in your career?" And BJ flat out said, "I want to get into coaching." He didn't even make any qualms about it. He said, "I want to get into coaching. That's the next thing."
Then what are we doing here?
I'm just
drop the ball, Tony. Drop it. It's That's where I stand. Anyways,
Hey, I'll lighthearted it, and this is an easy yes or no for Coach Close. Do you still drink coffee to keep up to watch these late night games, or are you just going to pass out and keep up with them in the morning?
he's going.
Like,
to
what's
bed.
this like with Big Ten?
He's
Uh,
going
thank goodness for recording. I record, and I got to get my sleep.
Just
I
say
mean,
we're
I'm
past
still watching
You get older,
USC,
you got to
UCLA
get
too.
your sleep.
yeah,
Because
we're past.
USC, UCLA, and Iowa.
We're
Iowa State.
about an hour past my bedtime.
He's
Yeah.
way past his bedtime, Tony.
Yeah.
Hey,
Well,
if
you're
you
back
don't,
at home base at
Tony,
least.
For you guys, I'll do it.
if you don't get off the line, it's going to be another month before we see Gary again. So let's.
At least. Well, I'm
What
not
time
coming
is
again until it's after a win.
What time is the next game? Is that
The next
is that
game
a-
is against the next game's against Penn State, and against Purdue, and it's a week from tomorrow at 6 p.m.
Week from tomorrow against the Boilers.
Yep.
And then it'll be 8:15, 8:30 post game shows. That's an hour earlier tonight.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
And then Wisconsin after that, huh?
yeah.
Yeah,
That's a week. That's a sad. I know that's a Saturday noon game. I want to say that's Saturday noon. That's actually the day I'm moving down to Pleasant Hill.
Okay,
So
Cool.
I probably won't be able to watch that. I'll have to listen to it.
Oh, wow.
Tony. Tony,
That's tough. That's
I
tough.
appreciate you being here and your support as always, sir. And of course, we'll be back here for women's basketball postgame with Kashin Alexander tomorrow night.
Who they got tomorrow?
They have Northwestern.
Oh, Northwestern. Yep.
Got to win that game. Must win. The women.
Is that streaming only too again or not?
No, it's on TV. What is it on? I don't know what it's on.
I
It
don't
is
know. I'm
on-
saying I know. I know the women's basketball has at least 3 or 4 left on stream.
It's on BTN tomorrow night. So,
Big Ten Network.
yep. Tony, thank you, sir.
Yeah,
Have a
thanks,
great
man.
night.
Thanks for your time. Yep.
Appreciate it, sir. All right, folks, as I mentioned, Iowa Northwestern, the women on the court tomorrow night, 7 p.m. Central Time, the Hawkeyes and the Wildcats. Big game because this is not a good Northwestern team. The women are trying to climb themselves out of a hole after losing 5 straight. They got one. They stole one at Washington, looked terrific doing it. But now you got to go back home, prove it, and beat Northwestern before big game against Juju Watkins and USC, a game in which Caitlin Clark will be honored with her jersey retirement. So this is a must-win tomorrow night, BTN, and of course we'll have live post-game coverage with Hawkeye great Kashin Alexander. The Hawkeyes tonight, the men losing to Ohio State 82-65 behind a struggling group of starters, including Josh Dix, who finished with a goose egg, as did Brock Harding. Peyton Sanford was 1 of 7 in the first half, finished with 13 points on 5 of 16 shooting, shot 30% from behind the arc on 10 attempts. Drew Thelwell was one of 2 starters that really shined, 20 points for Drew, 8 of 10 from the field, 3 of 4 from 3. Owen Freeman had 14 points, 8 rebounds. Seydou Traore gave them double figures off the bench with 13 points, 3 rebounds. Iowa, once again, was in the red on the glass, struggled in the second half to defend in general, gave up 50-plus in the game. Defense continues to be a problem, especially away from home. And when you're not making shots, of course, it doesn't take a genius to realize that you don't stand a chance. So got to figure out a way to shore up the defense and try to shoot a little bit better on the road. Can't get goose eggs out of 2-year starting guards. RTI Threads, folks, is a big part of the reason why we're here. Be sure you support the apparel lines of Owen Freeman, Peyton Sanford, Josh Dix, Cooper DeJean, and so much more. Go to rtithreads.com/NIL. Again, that's rtithreads.com/NIL. Gary, it's fun once again to catch up with you. Glad you're back in the Midwest. I think it's probably cold, but you avoided most of the cold weather, did you not? You were gone before.
No, we got some good
Okay.
cold weather. So I've been back.
You
But
got the bad stuff.
it's winter. You gotta expect that.
Life is just great for you, though. You get to go to South Carolina. You get to go to South Carolina, enjoy that. Then you come home. Your Eagles are in the Super Bowl again.
Oh, it's unbelievable. Love it.
And then people are pining for you to be on this show. I mean, just does it get any better? And
If
you're
it
on
does, hard to believe.
you're on the short list for next one of the next assistants at Other.
Yeah, I got a job coming. That's good.
It just didn't get any better.
It's nice to be loved.
And you know what, Gary? You know, the other I just thought of a person that BJ can hire in addition to you and Matt Gaydens. Your son Sam would be he's worked on some basketball staffs in his time.
Yes.
Wouldn't that be a cool What's he? Is he still looking for basketball related?
He's had a couple interviews, hasn't landed anything yet, and he's actually he's going to go for his master's in sports leadership.
Very cool.
And keep looking. So
very cool.
Yep.
Well, we wish him all the best, and Gary, we'll talk to you hopefully after a win, whatever that may be.
Sooner rather than later.
All right, folks. For Coach Gary Close, I'm Corey Brada from the Hawkeye of the Storm. We'll talk to you tomorrow night after Iowa Northwestern women's hoops.